So it's now performance management time, so hopefully all of that was really heartfelt. And I actually do feel honored to have Kat on my team. You can imagine that when you're in technology, and part of my job, well actually most of my job is looking at ways to use the future of technology, and you really need people who can think outside of the box and bring everybody to the table. And so people like Kat are really vital to our team. I mentioned that my job is focused on the future. It's focused on where technology is going. It's focused on how we're delivering product and technology, which changes as fast as technology does. And it's focused on the future of products. And so part of what we do is imagine the world 5, 10, 20 years out, and trying to make those things that we think will come true. And so that means me and my teams get to play with really cool things, blockchain, IoT, simulations, and for a natural nerd like me, it's like a kid in a candy store. So I'm here today to really talk about why I'm so excited to be here with you today. Forums like this are a natural place where I feel like I need to be speaking, and anybody who's speaking about the future needs to be speaking, because we are at a point when everything is changing so massively, and there are so many technology areas that are really coming together to create a world that is so much different than the world of today. In fact, this is a moment to recognize it is the calm before the storm. It is really a pause before the world that we're creating in the next 20 years will look nothing like today. And without people who are focused on creating that world, people that look like all of us, people that think like all of us, and not just one segment of society, we will be simply recreating the problems of today. We have to imagine a world that is not only lifting all of our experiences, but lifting the human condition and taking away the biases, the prejudices, the things that have been built mainly based on power segments that held power for a large portion of time. So I am very excited that we are all here today to talk about the future. And I invite you all to not only think about your part in moving forward diversity and inclusion today, but making sure that you're part of the future and how we build that out, and thinking about how the work you're doing today isn't just for today, it's for that future world. So I'm going to spend some time talking about technologies that are not only game-changing in and of themselves, but have the opportunity to change life as we know it. And these are things that are not only going to connect our daily world together, make more intelligent experience for us, but also change our human condition. These are things that are going to enable us to solve problems like global warming, like poverty, world poverty, things that like disease, and really expand our life. And one of the things that I often think about when I think about these changes that are happening is, that all sounds really good. And yes, the data seems to provide evidence that the rate of change is accelerating fast enough to make many of these things come true. But really, when you think about it, and when I think about it, it's like, how could that happen? How could life be so different than the one I know today? And I'm reminded of a time 4 years ago when I first moved to New York City. And there are so many things I love about New York City. Taking a cab was not one of them. Because for me, it often meant I'd have to go quickly, jump in front of somebody, or try to prevent somebody from jumping in front of me on a corner. I don't know if any of you have had this experience, waving faster than anybody else, trying to whistle faster than anybody else, and hoping for like really good karma that the person who was going to show up, number one, was friendly, number two, knew where I was saying I needed to go, and number three, that I didn't have anything in the seat that was going to make my jeans stain. So, it was so much friction. And my choices were either doing that or getting on the subway. Often in times when I was in a crunch, I had to take a taxi. And all of that was replaced in less than a year by a little app on my phone that automatically pulled in the address I needed to go to, told me when the driver was going to be there. I didn't have to compete on the curb with fancy arm signs. And I didn't have to worry about the payment because all of that was done. And you know what? Most of the times, the car was clean, the driver was friendly, because they wanted 5 stars. And it's an amazing transformation, but how many of you will raise your hand saying you want to go back to nostalgic hand waving on the corner? Nobody. Nobody. If you do, like, talk to me. I want to know about a business opportunity or something. But, you know, if we could imagine that things like that are transforming our daily life right before our eyes, and it's not hard to imagine that there's a next leap that will happen for our children and our children's children. How many of you as children would have imagined a life that we have today? And we have no idea about our children's future that many people have predicted. They will have the ability to have superhuman strength, to have skins and prosthetics that give them skills we can't even imagine today. Embedded chips that not only enable them to have a 24-hour doctor understanding their nutritional needs and prevent any kind of chaos, heart injury, trauma, but also the ability to have 3D organs printed for them or created for them to extend their life. Did you know that Google's spending 30% of all of its operational costs right now on figuring out how to extend human life? That's a lot of money for a big company like Google. And if Google's doing that, and if so many other people are focused on things like IoT and blockchain and artificial intelligence, there is no telling what the world will be like in 20 years. So if, you know, in 20 years, in 50 years, if your children's children talk to you about going to Mars, to visiting their parents, don't be surprised. So I have got 12 minutes, actually only 11 now. And so there's a number of different megatrends that are happening. I'm just going to focus on 3. Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, and cognitive learning, and blockchain. Let's start with the Internet of Things. There are 15 billion connected devices today, and that amount is growing exponentially. And that means that what that means for us, and it's not just important to talk about the technology, what's important is to talk about what that really means for us. What does that feel like? So in today's world, our experiences are largely disconnected, right? You have, you know, your work experience, which is disconnected from your commuting experience, whatever that may be, which is disconnected from your cooking experience, which is disconnected from your workout experience. And all of those different experiences, you spend time managing conflicts, trying to make them run smoothly so that your day can be as optimal as possible. And when we have embedded devices in our lives, that means that our world changed and we don't have to manage the friction between those different things. In today's life, for me, if I walk up to my house, automatically my door unlocks. And I walk inside and automatically my alarm's shut off. And then I walk up the stairs and automatically my lights turn on. And that's just one step into connected devices. And they are kind of separate. They're all just connected together through some Apple home kits. But in the world of tomorrow and the world of the future, when all of these devices are connected and have a layer of artificial intelligence on top of them, you can imagine waking up with a light that turns on slowly. It turns on earlier because it knows that you have an earlier meeting. It also turns on earlier because it wants you to work out a little bit more based on the snack that you had late last night. Sensors in your body have automatically told your robot what kind of meal you need and cooks that meal for you. And it's based on the palate preferences that you have. So it's not only nutritious, it actually tastes good. And your clothes are already picked out based on the day and the weather, and your robot has picked those out for you. That's the kind of interconnected experience that you no longer have to manage. And what happens when you don't have to manage that is that the time you used to spend managing all of that for the optimal day, suddenly you have time to work on things and innovate and create experiences that you wouldn't have had time for. I don't know if you're like me, but most days I feel like I need another 24 hours to fit in everything that I wanted to do because all of this chaos management had to happen. or all of these friction points in my day had to happen. Much like if you look 20 years ago where we had to drive to the doctor or go and look up something that, from the library, but God forbid everybody used a library back then. I can't even imagine that today. That was time spent out of our days. And much like that transformation, in 20 years, in 30 years, in 10 years, our experience is going to be so much different when things connected and our experience is streamlined. And the thing about this is that it not only applies to our daily life, it applies to things like finance, it applies to things like government. How many of you have gone to the DMV lately? All right, so I spent 6 hours in the DMV one time when I first moved here, and it occurred to me, wow, this really could use an update. And, IoT is a big part of that, because imagine an experience in the DMV where you walk in, they automatically know what you need, fill out a form automatically, and automatically in 5 seconds that's processed. I can imagine a world like that. And so if our expectations of using these technologies is not only changed by the technology, it's driven by us in many cases. How many of you walked up to the DMV counter and said, you need IoT? Well, I kind of did. But anyway, but that's just an example how there's a forcing mechanism that continues to push these things forward. And so moving on to artificial intelligence, when there are more embedded devices, that means a couple of things. One is there's a lot more data. And all of that data needs to be connected to drive more intelligence. But there's one small problem. Most of the artificial intelligence we create today is using structured data. That's data in tables and rows that we have defined meaning from. So unstructured data is data like videos, like documents, like voice, pictures, data where you don't really understand what the meaning is. And so there's a critical piece that's needed to go from unstructured data without meaning to data with meaning that we can use for artificial and deep learning intelligence. And that is natural language processing. Have you heard of Watson? Watson's main feature is natural language processing. And I'll give you an example of this. In 2017, or just last year, there was a brain cancer patient that, and in brain cancer, and particularly in this kind, time is of the essence. You need to really figure out what's the treatment plan for a patient, and it involves looking at the genome sequence, it involves looking at past cancer treatments relative to that cancer, that particular type of protein in that cancer. And so in this situation, there was already a doctor that had been assigned, there was already a treatment plan, and they had already analyzed parts of that, that cancer patient's genome sequence. So they wanted to see how well Watson would do, which used natural language processing in creating a similar treatment plan. And so Watson ingested 160,000 cancer journals and past cases. And it analyzed the full sequence, the full genome sequence of the patient. And it came up with a treatment plan that was very close. It needed a little bit of tweaking that the doctor had prescribed. The difference was Watson did it in 10 minutes. It took a doctor 160 hours. That's the difference between life and death. And it was for that patient. So I tell you this not to be, really morbid about things, but I tell you this to tell you that there is hope not only for new ways of experiencing life, there is hope for extending life, for creating a better life, for creating a world that we can't even begin to conceive of right now. And some of those things that are on the horizon for us are things like self-driving cars. You've all heard that this is coming. Well, the projections are that will be, by 2025, we won't be driving cars anymore, which means that you won't have to worry about parking cars, or finding parking. Wow, what a thing in the city. That'll be amazing. I swear to God, I have the worst parking juju. Like, I can never find a spot. So I'm looking forward to this day. Things like really being able to go from just predictions to actually creation. Can you imagine a world where a movie is created for you dynamically by artificial intelligence, and based on your reactions, the movie changes? So for my son, I'm sure it would include a lot more horror, and for me, it would include a lot more, I don't know, sci-fi. So, but movies like that can be created dynamically is an amazing step forward from kind of the world we live in today, where we kind of assume that only creativity can come out of people. In a world of tomorrow, robots will have the ability and probably be better at sports than we are. So when you think about it, there's an awful lot of calculus that goes into play in your brain to determine if there's a fly catch or a fly ball in softball, to determine where to go. Robots will have the ability to do that as well. And when we think about playing soccer with robots, that might be an interesting challenge. So let me move on. So blockchain. So there's a lot of connected devices, a lot of artificial intelligence, a lot more smart, but let's imagine a world where we've got an artificial intelligence Judge Judy, just as snarky as today. And that Judge Judy is responsible for making guilty or innocent verdicts based on court cases that come to her. And so she's going to be able to say if a person who is accused of a crime based on biometrics, based on where they are, based on GPS, if they actually committed the crime. And all of that is great and assumes a level of fairness that we don't have today. But if that is stored in a database, much like we store data today, that's going to be a problem because people can hack into the database. People inside the court system can change records. That person's identity and what they've brought to what they've done in their life automatically comes under some scrutiny or could be changed. Property documents can be changed, and that's the same case as we have today. But here's the thing, there's an answer for that, and it's called blockchain. Imagine a world where the truth is the truth, and the truth is not able to be changed, where data isn't stored in one central repository, but on thousands of nodes, and it's not added as the truth until it's validated by all of the nodes. And that nobody can change the records in one system, because even if you change the system in one node, you can't convince all the other nodes to change. So blockchain, there's a lot of specificity around this, but if you can imagine stealing a cookie out of a cookie jar, and if I was a bad actor and I wanted to steal a cookie out of a cookie jar, I'd much rather that cookie jar be in somebody's kitchen back in the back corner so I could sneak in and take it and nobody knows. Imagine a world where the cookie jar is in a public market and everybody's looking at it at the same time, and the cookie jar is locked up. I'm going to have no chance of stealing that cookie. That's the difference between blockchain and central databases, one of the differences. That's the way that we're going to keep the truth the truth. So there's so many megatrends that are happening right now. What's important about these megatrends, and what's important about right now in these megatrends, as I said earlier, is that we're all really focused not just on how technology is changing, not just on how we can change diversity right now, but how we can bring our ideas about how the future should be with these technological changes. So I'm going to talk just a second about one of the ways that we've approached this at Capital One. We last year launched the first SMS text-based chatbot with our customers. And it was a new experience for us. With our customers. It was an experience that we wanted to really engage our customers and to do so in a way that was friendly, that represented all of our customers, not just one segment of our customers. And so when we approached this, we said, we need a diverse team to do this. We need a team that is diverse not only in skill sets, but in ethnicities and genders, so that we can represent and connect with our customers. You'd be surprised how many Eno customers who have said, I love you, Eno. They say more things to Eno than they do to many of our customer service agents. And by the way, Eno is one spelled backwards. And even that matters to us. So just in closing, again, this is a pivotal time. We are at a moment before things start changing. And we need to remember this, because someday when our kids ask us, what did you do before you had your whole world connected? What did you do before you could go to Mars? What did you do before life was extended to 200 years? We need to be able to go back and remember that we claimed this moment and we fought hard to make the future diverse and fair and the best of humanity. So thank you for joining me.